Okay, so I think I've maybe figured this out. I didn't realize that muting the stream, I thought muting the stream would just mute it for me, not the entire of the audio that I was trying to share. Um, but we're going to be taking at Infrared's and Haz's proposal for a grand coalition. I'm not actually sure if I'm starting it at the right spot right now. Um, I'm just going to be starting it from where it is. Um, but I can maybe skip around a little bit. So I had proposed this about a week ago. Now I don't think Has reads anything I write other than like if it's really negative um, about what about some of his groups, not ideas, but like their frameworking on I think what is essential and what's most dangerous to focus on. However, um, what I had used as an analogy was the mafia, and so I titled my blog post "Underworld Communism." The Commission 2.0. So if you don't know what the Commission was a mafia sort of coalition that started in 1931 under Charles Luciano, Lucky Luciano, if you don't know who that is. Um, and the idea behind it was to organize crime nationally because the state was starting to catch up to them, right? They had just gone through the Volstead Act and they had just gone through Prohibition, and the state was really up their ass at that point, and they were really starting to finally. Because remember, this is also during the height of the Great Depression, so the state was starting to consolidate power on its own, and and Luciano realized that they needed to do the same thing. They needed to run this thing not regionally or sectorally, or they needed or not based on ethnicity and all these other divisive things, or even just based on Italians, because it wasn't just Italians who were in this; there were Jews in it as well, like Meyer Lansky. So they realized that the only thing that mattered, the only and really for them, I mean, because we're thinking the opposite, but the only thing that matters is communism. For them, the only thing that mattered was money, just fucking money. So they decided that they were going to have the same rules everywhere, from New York to Kansas City to Buffalo to Jersey to to Pittsburgh, wherever the mafia was. And so they set up the commission, and there was 6 seats on the commission, 5, 6 seats on the commission. I can't remember. And then so all the rules were the same nationally, and this got rid of all the bullshit of you know of uh, the infighting that was happening between different people from different regions of Italy, whether they were from Calabrese or uh, Sicily or uh, Napoli or wherever, right? Because these they all had their little mafia, um, um, they all had their little mafia clans at that time. So if they could overcome their differences, and mind you, their differences weren't reducible to like some of the petty shit that communists are reducible to, which is that these people were killing each other. These people were outright fucking murdering each other and leaving bodies in the street. We're not doing that. We're just calling people names online sometimes, um, or for me, I just write blog posts and critiques of people. Or what's the worst thing that happens to a communist in this day and age? They get deplatformed or something, and that's because some other these fucking leftists form some sort of coalition amongst themselves to try to like get people you know thrown off YouTube or Twitch or whatever, or even doing something as ridiculous as doxing them or harassment campaigns and stuff like that. It's like we're not even close to the mafia level type shit. So so basically, some of my points is that, or two of my points was that, like, look, the Luciano was very savvy, and he realized that the state was actually the unifying concept, um, that brought the mafia together, because they were like, okay, we're going to have this one shot and one shot only to get ahead of the state. And they did for 55 years. It wasn't until 1986 until that the mafia was really crushed by finally the state. The state had finally, RICO act them and destroyed them. And well, in Latin, there's still vestiges of them left, but it's nothing like it used to be. And the other point being that they were able to put aside their differences and they were able to work together for a very long time. Not always peacefully, but they were just able to do that. And so I think we could do the same thing. But let's hear what has to say, because I was really happy that he brought this up, and I was actually very surprised that he brought it up. So it goes a lot to his own credit about his own maybe self-reflection on this, and his open-mindedness now to the idea that now's the time maybe to strike. Now is a good time to do it, because now there's this just deep anti-state fucking hatred amongst everyone, or growing at least, and this is a good time to do it. So I'm going to start it, but if it's not at the right place, I'm going to skip around.
People Kefwels is talking about to the left.
Let's
YouTube.
Let's start.
And he's towing the correct line, relatively speaking. Look, he's got a big following. They have a big following. So if you're fucking serious, if they're serious about ditching the Democrats, especially in the midst of the current conflict, if they're serious about the sympathy they have with the Mukawama, the axis of resistance, if they're serious about all these things they claim they're serious about, okay, I am willing, personally speaking, to put aside our differences. I'll talk to Jackson too about it, and we don't have to be on a team, but like, I'm willing for some kind of collaboration of our efforts, even if it's privately, coordinating our intelligence and so on against ops. So this is my message to them. If they're serious about it, because look, I think this conflict specifically has left everybody stranded. Okay? I think it's left everybody stranded. I think it's left everybody stranded in some kind of way, politically. And I wonder what connection they still have with the DNC and with Democrat-aligned institutions. Morlock, let's go. I really wonder what it is at this point. Like, call me fucking naive, and I could be wrong, but are they institutionally tied to liberalism on an institutional level still? Or is it just if it's just an ideological thing, we can work past it. But if they still are institutionally committed, then we can't. But the reason I'm saying this is because the guy got kicked off of his video streaming platform. He got kicked off of it. So why should we not create some unity? And he's like, Haz, you're just a clout chaser. No, because I'll talk to Jackson too. Okay, and look, if all of us work we don't have to agree on everything. Like, personally speaking, I don't give a fuck about your, I don't care if you have blue hair, right? As long as it doesn't get in the way of getting things done, I don't give a fuck. I'm in favor of getting things done. Like, don't throw shit in my face and say, oh, we can't get things done because we have to atone for some shit America, settler, colonial. That's the shit we didn't fuck with, because it's like, okay, so we can't build a working class movement without berating people about the sins of their ancestors. It's not going to work, right? It's just straight up not going to work. I'm down with forming coalitions with native groups and black groups and then with white groups. Sure, I'm fine with that. But it's like, I'm not down for saying that white Americans are settlers who we can't reach out to. And, so this is what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying? So, let it be known, wise up. But, they can't do this because they're following, maybe. But it's like, listen, guys, your allies. I mean, look, I always see this fucking person in my mentions. And now this person is attacked. Like this, they all used to team up against me, And we don't forget that, by the way, how they all used to team up against me. They all used to team up against Infrared and Jackson. Hassan, this person, that person, Destiny Vosh, all of them. They put aside all their differences to do that, right? But look, what do you care about more? Okay? Oh, but you guys are transphobic. You guys are... Listen. Just put communism first.
Bingo, right? That is the couldn't have said it better, right? Put communism first. I can't be accused, and Jo and I can't be accused of thinking about anything else besides that. We have never talked about social issues. We have never talked about trans this or trans that, or settler colonial bullshit, or whatever their cause celebs are, that come up every so often, whether it's on Columbus Day, or it's like, well, no, actually it's Indigenous Peoples Day. And or that guy, what's his name, Black Red Guard or Black something. And every one of his posts is something about settlers and colonialism, and how they're not going to work with someone like Infrared. Whereas we've never been against Infrared in the sense we want to stop them. That's because, first of all, we're not a group, and second of all, I'm talking about mostly myself and JU. We've only criticized them from the point of a political economic perspective, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, I wrote a post called "The Cult of Infrared," but then I clarified that, trying to say that, like, it's this tendency, they also have this tendency towards purity, as well, as we're going to see later on, which I think it gets in the way of a lot of things, where it's like sometimes you just have to be indifferent. You kind of, and I think I'm seeing a little bit of that from Haz, where he's actually just being like, okay, I could just be indifferent towards this bullshit. What do you want to do? Because he's seeing it. He's seeing the fact that these people were able to put aside their differences to go after Infrared, but they wouldn't put aside their differences to go after the fascists in Washington, right? And we've seen that as well. We're also seeing that. We're seeing people. You have this Keffels person saying, "Oh, you have to choose a side, right?" And it's like, yeah, I already did, and it's against the people in Washington, D.C. It's against them, always. It's not other communists. It's not other Americans. It's the people who are sitting on the appropriations committees and spending us into fucking oblivion. It's those people. So that's the people that I'm against. So in terms of like clout chasing or whatever it is, I guess I kind of understand it from the point of view of like, okay, you're trying to popularize something, right? I don't know how necessary it is per se. Like, I don't think we need to convince. Like, my contention is still we don't need to convince people about communism. Enough people hate the state, or that's good enough for me on some level. Like, I don't need to convince them that like Stalin was good or anyone else is good, and this will all come up later. But that's but he did say something about doing a lot of this stuff in private and in secret, which I think is essential. Like, this has to be clandestine, and this has to be underground. And remember, there used to be secret societies during Marx's time, and not really anymore because it's a lot more difficult. But like, it could still be done, and the more secretive we are about it, the easier it is to spring sort of a trap for the state, and spring a trap for those who are kind of sleeping on us a little bit. So I think he's very correct that this is a good time for unity, because there's just a lot of people who are just homeless from um, what they're seeing from the state for the very first time. So uh, are there going to be people who we can never get away from the institutional politics of the swamp? Yes, right. They're just going to be attached to it, because they're going to be so afraid of, well, if we go after them, then that's going to leave this power vacuum where all of a sudden, oh, the cat. Because I've heard this argument before when I from other people, that they're like, well, if we get rid of the state and we defund the state, that means the capitalists are going to have free reign. And it's like, no, that's not what it means. And then there's other people on the other side who are saying, well, that means all these people who want to do bad things are going to be, to me, are going to have free reign. And I was like, no, that's not what it means either. Um, so we have to like get over that fear, I think. And I don't think it's a leap of faith at all. I think there's a perfectly logical reason. I think that the state is just, we want to just keep chipping away and chipping away and chipping away at the state's ability um, to manage the economy and to enact some of its more draconian policies um, on the American people and on its citizens and in globally as well. So, yeah, let's continue with what has to say.
You want to be gay? Go be gay. You want to be trans? I don't care. It's not my business. I don't care. Like, I don't give a fuck, right? Just don't make it the front and center of the fucking universe, you know? Besides, second thought in them, they seem pretty normal. You know, they don't seem like freaks. But you know how we know what their followers are going to say. Oh, you're going to throw all of us trans people under the bus and unite with infrared as a bigot. And so, like, what are you prioritizing here? Like, I don't fucking understand. Like, this shit is so stupid. This shit is so stupid. Yes, full disclosure, we're social conservatives, and we probably do disagree with you about policy. Yeah, we don't agree with the trans stuff. We don't. But like, practically speaking, do we want to go hunt them down and cause them harm? No.
Sorry.
Just don't make it the front and center of the fucking universe. It's like, we don't agree with the trans stuff. We don't. But like, practically speaking, do we want to go hunt them down and cause them harm? No. So like, straight up, it doesn't matter. You know, as far as you're concerned, it shouldn't fucking matter. What about building a communist alternative? That's what we're here for, you know. But I doubt they'll be receptive. But can you guys fucking imagine that? Can you imagine that?
Yes, I can't imagine that, because it's one of those issues that I talk about all the time, which is that MAGA, for the most part, already has communist tendencies to it. Okay. And I think they outnumber the number of communists in America by an overwhelming margin. And even people who are leftist or DSA type, so, whatever, socialists, by an enormous margin. If we're talking about the amount of people who would consider themselves communists in America, it can't be more than a couple. I'm really, really overestimating it here, like a couple million, maybe, right? At most. And we're talking about like actual communists, like not people like these soft socialists sort of kind of things who are like, we want healthcare for all, and we want, universal jobs programs and stuff like that. It's like, no, that's not what I can. That ain't communism, my friend. All right, there are fucking fascist think tanks who are advocating the same shit. But yes, I can imagine it, but I can also imagine this as well, is that we have to get other groups involved, not just communist ones. This is, I mean, if you want a real movement, you have to have numbers, you have to have figures, you have to have, um, like in my article that I wrote, that you have to get, unfortunately, get, or rather, fortunately, get unions involved, right? And you'll say, well, unions are just democratic funds. It's like, not anymore. Not anymore. Most of the people in unions are enthusiastically going to vote for Trump, right? They are MAGA to their core. So that era is sort of over. And so I think if we can get some of these larger unions on board and get some of the, I don't want to say heads of the families together, but yeah, heads of the major or organizations together, we could do some fucking damage. I mean, in my imagination, maybe I'm just thinking this, but like we're talking about like shutting down large sectors of the economy and holding the state hostage. I mean, that's how I would get it done. Why would you don't even have to you don't have to form like a massive quote unquote party. You know, the communist alternative is always just the real movement of society. That is always in motion, right? All we can do is sort of emulate it in some way. And so the way I've always looked at it is that, and this is again straight out of Marx, if you don't like it, is that capital creates the conditions and the foundations for communism. Nothing else does that. All right. We sort of mistake the idea that we have to have this like grand revolution or party in order to realize communism, but like we're so far removed from that epic, and we're so far removed from 1917 and 1848 that all we really have to do is force the state to do something it doesn't want to do, which is stop spending. All right. And I don't know if we, here's the thing, I don't know. I'm less convinced that we can get unions on board with this, because unions are in their own little fucking worlds as well. But unions have huge numbers. We're talking in the hundreds of thousands. The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and we're talking about you know the UAW or the pipe fitters or whomever. I mean, we're talking numbers in the hundreds of thousands. Steel workers. These are all people with hundreds of thousands of members. And can we get them on board with a movement against the state? That's what I think about a lot. Now, I don't know if Haz or Jackson have the juice to do this, but maybe Jackson does. I don't know. Maybe they both do. I have no clue. But I think if they're going to claim that they're popular, let's test it. Let's test how popular they are with unions right now, and whether they can get them to do something like this. That would be interesting to me, to see if they are capable of doing such a thing. So let's continue hearing what he has to say.
Can you imagine some kind of unity we get going? And I don't like, I'm going to be straight up, I don't like them personally. Like, I don't like these people personally. I just want to be clear about that. I don't like them personally. But if we combined our strength, that would be pretty interesting. Like, I just kind of want to see what would happen too. It's not even just, it would just be interesting. It's like look what this crazy person's saying. They're saying not since the 1950s. They're saying it's Jackson and it's Second Thought. Both of their popularity is super dangerous. It's like, dude, our enemies see it. So, if they see it, let's make it fucking happen, Let's make it happen. Yo, MIG, let's go.
Infrared is the sword and shield of American Marxism-Leninism.
Like, let me be clear about our red lines. Here's our red lines. All right, we can pursue different strategies too, but let me just, full disclosure, here's our red lines. No Democrats. That's our number one red line.
Yep, that's I hate the word base, but yes, that's base. Yes, of course. That's got to be like number one. No Democrats, and all no governmental involvement at all. anything that had any association with governmental or whatever institutional politics whatsoever. And I think the point that he's maybe not connecting, or that he kind of like tenuously connects, is the fact that people like Keffels is probably, and the people who are commenting below them, don't like the idea of going after Washington D.C. For some reason. I don't understand why. I don't understand it. It's like they think that like it's a firewall between them and like them being like publicly executed or something or whatever. And I don't. And all I could think is like think about who's the people who what they're using to whatever oppress you or to um, make laws against you that you feel that you're suffering under. It's the state. It's the fucking state. Just like all these people who were like, well, they canceled Roe v. Wade, right? And they were like, well, how are we going to try to get it back? And it's like, how about we try to do it through the same way that they just got rid of it? And I was like, you realize it took them 50 fucking years to get rid of it, and how much time do you have? Do you think to try to get it back at a federal level? I mean, these people are fucking. I mean, these people are just not only dumb, they're way more idealistic than any communist that I know about. Uh, we're at least grounded in reality in some way. But I mean, I don't recall if Haz talks about strategies here. But yeah, let's continue with this red line stuff.
No Democrat, nothing Democrat. We don't want no Democrat, anything. Okay, that's our red line. The red line is independent communist politics. Period. Any form of independent communist power, that's what we want to build. Okay, that's our red line. Everything else, again, to each their own. You can go do it. We'll do our own thing. You do your own thing. And that's it. But there's a new Red Scare. There's a new interest in study of Marxism-Leninism in the U.S. And these are just facts. These are just facts. And you cannot honestly deny our role in creating that. You just can't. You can't.
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure what he's saying by denying their role in it. Um, I don't think a couple of people's opinion about Jackson, Henkel, and their scare about tankies or whatever really constitutes as like. Because here's the thing: most people on MAGA already think that the government is a Marxist, fascist, communist dictatorship. All right, they've been living under the Red Scare for fucking forever. The real Red Scare is, I think, the fact that we should be mobilizing people against the state, right? That's the real Red Scare. The real Red Scare is that not that people are afraid of communists per se, but they are afraid of the government, right? And what they're capable of doing. And they're tired of paying for it, and they're tired of living under it, and they're tired of they're tired of work without end, and they're tired of living under just worse conditions than their forebearers. And so we're kind of confused a little bit about like maybe what we mean by Red Scare at this point. It's like this is maybe like a little bit bubble of thinking where it's kind of like this is all like no one really knows who we are. Yeah, I understand Jackson's the most popular or most whatever person on Twitter or X, whatever. But at the same time, like that doesn't mean that all of a sudden they know that like, oh, they're making the connection between like, oh, Jackson is the most popular person on Twitter, and therefore that means that there's all of a sudden this resurgence of Marxist Leninism. Until I see that like headline somewhere, I'm not gonna grant that any validity. Like you could ask the average person on the street, like, who's infrared? They don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Or they'll, if you go on the street and be like, is Marxist-Leninism back in vogue? They're going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But if you ask them, hey, do you think inflation's high? They'd be like, you fucking goddamn right it is. Right? And who are they gonna blame? The motherfuckers, Joe Biden or motherfucking whomever, whoever sits on the appropriations committees or whoever's writing all these disgusting fucking spending bills. So like our opportunity at a Red Scare is to unify all the various factions right now that are I don't want to say that they're more aware of the situation, but the political like we've made this argument before that the political economy that we live under is so nakedly barbaric in the way that it's carried out, in the way that it's managed by the state, that everyone has an idea of and somehow how they're getting fucked by it. And so it is only reasonable that we make the suggestion that, okay, well, if everyone's saying that the state is either not serving the interests of the people, which we don't think they could under most circumstances or any circumstances unless they just die, meaning the state dies or goes away or reduces its spending or reduces its own workforce, remember, which produces nothing, then I don't think that I forgot, I lost my train of thought, but what was I saying? Oh, right. I don't think we have to convince them of our ideas to the extent that maybe Infrared does or other communist organizations do. And I understand Haz's red lines. I do, because I have my own. But I'd be willing to work with Infrared and work with any other group that gets on board with wanting to disrupt everything, like really, really disrupt things, because we could do it, but we need the numbers first off. It just can't. I don't know how many people are infrared. I mean, even all the people who follow him are not infrared members. I can tell you that much. A lot of them just get news from him sometimes, or geopolitical news from him. But so we don't have like a clear number of how many people are infrared. We know there's 92,000 members in DSA. We know there's 80 something thousand members in the Green Party, I think, or something along those lines. But we don't have a good idea of how many people within the United States are in infrared. And that would be a nice thing to know about. But having said that, we still need numbers to pull this off. And I think that's possible to do. And they don't all need to be communists. That's the other thing. All right. And I don't think we need to convince them of communism. We just have to convince them of an aim that would benefit them. And we have to explain what those benefits are. But again, I'll shut up and let him talk now.
You can't deny that. You can't deny it, honestly. You know? And guys, we have to make, these are not our friends. I'm not saying they're our friends. They're not our friends. And we have to remember everything. Like, we have to remember everything they did. But,
no, you don't. You don't have to remember everything.
What matters, you know? What?
Sorry. You don't, it's not, no, I don't think that's the way of going about it. Like, I don't carry too many grudges against infrared, except for the people who like came after me like personally, just because I criticized them as a group, right, and criticized some of their ideas and having some leftist tendencies of their own, right, and having some of their own purity politics, right. Like, there's people who came after me for, racial, like really racist shit, right? And I'm not sitting here going, well, I can't forgive. No, it's like my last post, I made a comment about some people in infrared who like don't like me, but they'll still willing to take my ideas and use them, right, when they're making tweets, right? But I said personally, yeah, I don't like this, but as a communist, I don't care because the message is getting out there, and that's what's most important. If they want to take my ideas or take some of the things I've said in my blog post and they want to use it as their own and retweet it, and their account is a zillion times larger than mine, good, great. I'm for that. Personally, I think it's scummy, but as a communist, whatever. So like this whole, so maybe I'm not making a good point. So maybe you can disassociate the personal from the our aims of direct action. So, but I don't think we have to dwell on it, because then that's going to be in the back of everyone's minds, where it's like we can't squash old beefs. It's like, you know, we have to have some sort of a clean slate somewhere. I think that's just what I believe in order to really move forward, and that's going to start with a dialogue that's not just debate. That's why I hate fucking debates. Debates are fucking stupid and gay and lame. Or no, am I allowed to say that on YouTube? I don't know, but like they're lame. They're lame as fuck, and like because everyone thinks, oh no, we're creating a dialogue, and that's creating a dialectic, and then we'll get to it. Yeah, how's that going? Because everyone is now getting a lot more, other than this exogenous thing that happened in the Middle East that people are sort of rallying together for. Like, debate culture has not brought people together. We need to be having actual discussions about like how are we going to fucking crush the state that's doing this, and because eventually there's going to be blowback on us as well. Because Haz wasn't there in 2015. There was huge cancellation of fucking communists online on Twitter. That's why I haven't had a Twitter account since this year. Okay. And the same thing with JU. We left Twitter in 2015 once they started cracking down on us and stuff like that. So it's happened before in the past. This is not new. So we need to get beyond that and unify, and we shouldn't be celebrating. Like, I've never celebrated anyone's cancellation, and I've never celebrated another comrade's. And I still call Haz Comrade Haz, even though he calls me a dick sucker, which is kind of funny when you think about it, because he doesn't really know me, but like, and I don't know him, but that is funny to me. I don't know why, but so when I think about like all the personal stuff, it's like, do I like Hazen? I mean, I can't really say whether I like him or not. I mean, I only think he's an asshole from his online persona. But like he says, like he's that in his real life. So like I guess he's an asshole also maybe in real life. I don't know. I don't, because that's what he says. He says I'm like this in real life. So I'm like, okay, I guess he's a fucking asshole. It doesn't mean anything. I mean, people probably think I'm a fucking asshole, in a you know, or a cunt or something like that. Again, I don't know if I'm allowed to say any of this on YouTube, but because it's misogynistic or something. But like that's what people say about me. You know. So it's like, whatever. Who cares? Like I'm not for censorship, and I am not for, like, I didn't want to see Jackson get, or Midwestern Marks get canceled off Instagram or whatever it was. You know, that's bullshit. You know, and I don't advocate, and I wasn't for I didn't know about infrared at the time, but I wasn't for Haz getting kicked off of Twitch. It's bullshit. You know, it's bullshit. But I don't know. So I don't have his experience with that, of being the target. So maybe it's more definitely personal to him than it is to me. And so, because I haven't really put myself out, I'm a very private person. I've been that way for a very long time. This is why you're not going to see me on this Twitch stream. So, or this YouTube stream. So you're going to have to take that for what it is, I suppose. But so maybe I'm not seeing it through his eyes, which is like he's had to deal with a lot more acrimony, not acrimony, but acrimony than the average maybe streamer or social media personality, especially someone trying to do something new, right? And especially having different factions that are much larger than him come down on him, right? Which, again, just to reiterate, I've never tried to do, and Jay have never tried to do. We never said, hey, don't follow Haz, or don't don't listen to them or whatever the case may be. Our positions have always tried to been really critique them from a political economic point of view, whereas everyone else had tried to critique them from a social point of view, which is that, everything they're saying about them is like they're fascist, they're blah 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 blah, they're anti this, they're social conservatives, and they say mean things or whatever the case may be. It's like, oh, all right, well, so do I. So it's like so I get, now I'm understanding where he's, after I worked through in my head, I kind of understand where he's coming from. It'd be very hard to get past the personal, but then again, you have to do it. I mean, I think that's what we have to do. We have to get beyond it, and we have to. It's something that I think we're capable of doing. Not all of us, but that as a general movement, if we can really refocus who the enemy is, and the enemy is not each other. It can't possibly be each other. So anyways, back to Haz.
What matters is, here's the facts. There's there's a breakdown of both parties right now. I mean, like, you don't agree with the MAGA communism thing, right? Okay. You don't have to. But if you're committed to an independent, I mean, maybe these people just weren't leaders, they were followers. So when people like this who had glowy Twitter, and people like this were like slandering the People's Party and slandering Jimmy Dore, maybe Hassan and Second Thought and Hakeem all followed suit just because they were followers and didn't know better. Okay. But now, it's like, now is the time to ditch the mainstream parties. Straight up. Oh, but you want us to work with bigots and racists. You don't have to work with anyone. Okay. You don't have to go reach out to MAGA people at all and talk to bigots and racists and stuff. But our goal is to bring communism to the average working class person. But there's all sorts of demographics that could be ripe as the base for a third party. It's not just going to be one demographic. And if they want to go focus on, blue-haired people or something, yeah, go do it. As long as it serves the goal, I don't give a fuck. It's like, here's where I stand. Like, I don't fuck with that rainbow flag shit. I don't fuck with that trans flag shit. Because it's about the red flag. Just have a red flag, It's about the red flag. Don't shit it up with these other flags. Just make it about the red flag. And we're not going to come after people for their private idiosyncrasies and whatnot. Can they just leave? It's about what you prioritize. But it's like, but here's the thing. It's like, we already got Dreamleaf and Keffels that are like so focused on the trans agenda for young kids. So it's like, do MLs really got the time in this country, even if they're woke idiots, to make that? No, motherfucker. Our priority is defending the legacy of communist states. Our priority is defending the viability of communism. And you know what? I think there is room for common ground. I'm going to say, fuck it. There's room for some common ground when it comes to that.
Okay, so this is where he doesn't lose me, but like, they're social conservatives. I'm a centrist. I don't care. I am totally indifferent. I don't give a fuck about defending former Soviet Union. I don't care about defending China. I don't care about North Korea. I don't give a flying fuck. I don't care about making any of these arguments for or against them. My goal has been try to see them, and the reason why I do this is I try to analyze them from a distance, right, and see, like, okay, what within labor theory would suggest that, for example, the Soviet Union collapsed, right? Now, I have an answer for this. I'm not going to go into it. I think I've talked about it on my blog a little bit, but in one of Haz's debates that he was talking to some fucking Nazi guy. He was talking about like modernization requires a lot of death, right, and a lot of fucking misery, right. And he was talking about how that applied to something like the Soviet Union, and so they're modernizing very quickly, and so we're seeing it on a compressed timeline. And not only that, we're seeing it in the modern era where it's easier to record these things and it's easier to have a more accurate historical record on this. And at the same time, um, they did this in such a way that it really does lend itself to what Marx was talking about, was that they did it on the basis of capital accumulation, and they did it on the basis of the law of value, even though they didn't have like a exact pricing system. That is irrelevant because you don't need an exact pricing system. Prices and values are always constantly diverging regardless. And so when you have this development of technology on the one hand, and then you have this non-necessity of labor on the other, that's constantly being even more made more non of a necessity, then yeah, you're going to run into this critical point in your development where you have to make a choice between um, letting dead labor take over, which is the fixed capital, right, or continuing on with making labor a necessity and reproducing it as a necessity at the level of the state, which is what the Soviet Union did. Right? They had a choice between shorter hours of labor or going into a war economy. Guess what they chose? And by 1980, they could have had a shorter work week. And then after perestroika and all these other things, they collapse. It's not a fucking mystery. At least in my eyes, it's not a mystery. But we don't have to like defend any of this stuff, and we don't have to like. There's this want to like return to like. This is why I kind of criticized them a little bit. Is that this is the inherent purity politics that I don't like with the left, which is like it's like, here's our lines on where we cannot cross, and it's like, well, then we're never going to get to who the real enemy is. If it's all just about the aesthetics and it's all just about the getting back to some some idealistic version of what we want to think about these specific economies, or trying to defend the legacy of this or that. It's like, no, we're not living then really in the present moment of what's happening, then are we? I don't want to spend any more time talking about the Soviet Union or the or China, modern day China, or North Korea, or Cambodia, or any of these countries, or Vietnam. I don't want to talk about them any more than I want to talk about, my dead grandmother, who I miss, but anyways, I don't want to talk. It's not germane to communism and how we realize it. I don't think so. Like this idea of like we have to like spend all this time like fighting over flags. Well, that's what we're gonna fight over, flags. Still, or we're gonna fight over fucking whose interpretation of this or that country or this or that leader. That's still going to be the red line. How about the red line is, if you don't want to fucking get rid of the state, the existing state, and if you don't want to figure out a way on how to do that, then you're out. Go vote for fucking I don't know, whoever these fucking weirdos running for the PSL are. Go vote for fucking Cornell West. Go vote for fucking, I don't know. I don't even know who else is running. RFK Jr. Whoever the fuck, someone or some other independent cunt. Go vote for them. Okay. In terms of party building, I don't think we need to have a party in that sense. Like, it's really difficult to do that. First of all, I think it's easier to force the state from the outside to do something, because again, I've made this argument consistently, is that if they're the national capitalist, right, which is what we think they are, we can make them do something by simply shutting down the economy. Right now you'll say, well, that's just a general strike. Yeah, but it's a general strike against the state. Right? You know who led the or helped form the March on Washington during when the Million Man March in Washington for Martin Luther King. It was the president of the UAW. So that's something that we could use. I mean, we can say, hey, this is in your history's the legacy of your union here in your history, right? You did it before. Help us do it again. All right. So I'm not entirely sure that this is where I would go with it, but again, that's just me. And again, and so I'm not disagreeing with him that we need the unity. I'm just disagreeing maybe on some specifics, but that's just all what I'm thinking in my head right now. So it's something that they can iron out, and I hope he continues down this path. So,
like Hakeem, did he jack some of our shit? Yeah, he did, but who cares? You know, who cares? Because look at this. What did he say? Where's the fucking video? Where he like talks about what social. Oh, is that second thought? Let me find that shit. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and, look, there's some common ground. I'm gonna say some shit. Give me a sec. Where the fuck is it? Yeah, okay. I don't know where it is where they talk about like a socialist society. I'm going to show you some. This, like, we can have some common ground when it comes to this shit. Like, put the culture stuff aside. And let's talk about economics. Let's collaborate in these areas. Collaborate in the areas where there can be common ground, and, go our separate ways where there cannot be common ground, which is cultural stuff, right? But if we could revive an interest in the study of Marxism, Leninism, which includes Marxism and the study of classical political economy, we could create an independent counter hegemony. We could create an independent power.
Again, this is where I sort of differ a little bit because I don't think we need to educate the masses at all about this. They know who's fucking them over. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to get clarity on what he specifically means by this, by like literally sitting people down and teaching them about Marxism, right? Or whatever, or teaching them about labor theory. I think there is, I could be wrong. I think they already have an inherent understanding of our political economy. And some of them have a better understanding of it, frankly, than communists do. Okay? Because they understand it from the Keynesian side, right? They understand it from the fact that, oh, all this fucking fiscal policy is in this welfare is actually starving us, even though they call it welfare, right? Or they'll say things like, we're being overtaxed, or that's more the libertarian side, or in the fiscal conservative side, or they'll say things like inflation is just rampant, and not even just in the last 3 years, but over the last 40 years of their entire lives. They'll even say things like we're working too long for not enough, and they're not talking about wages. They're talking about their purchasing power, right? Because they understand that real wages have just absolutely collapsed. I wish I could bring up a chart that I had from Henrik Grossman's book, where he showed the downward curve in real wages over a certain amount of years. Maybe some other time I'll bring it up, but it's in the last part of his book. But anyways, so I'm not entirely sure this is the way I would go down it, just because there seems to be like an inversion of how I would deal with this. First, you work together, and then you go your separate ways. Not you work together and going your separate ways as you're going along, because you could always go your. What does communism eventually end in? With free association. So if you guys just want to associate with social conservatives, then you just, after communism is quote unquote realized, then you can do that, right? And if white people just want to associate with people who want to look like themselves, be my guest. But then there'll be others who don't. So that's, I think that's a cart before the horse kind of situation. And again, I'm not on board with a planned economy per se, because I'm not on board with having um, a government apparatus do this. I'm on board with a democratic way of having input without having this bullshit thing that doesn't produce anything, right? Like, you could have for example, and this is, and I'll link this when I'm done. Um, there are ways that people are talking about using the blockchain to do city planning, right? Which is to have real time input from their denizens about how they would plan their or what the problems are arising and how they would solve them locally. And you could also, so I don't see why you couldn't have that at a broader national level. So let's just continue.
These deprogram people, you know.
Brought to you by Net.
Well, let's see. America's forgotten socialist history. How cringe is this? Is it cringe? It kind of seems like a lot of this was coming from our video, right? With the patriotism video where we didn't talk about the pre-United Statesian, but they talked about indigenous communalism. But did they talk about these utopians? Yeah, they did, I think. They did talk about.
I'm going to skip over this part, and I think I saw this part and it didn't have much to do with anything.
On that shit, but they talk scrutiny of investigation and theory. So this is my proposition. This is my offer. I don't trust them. And I want to be clear. Don't fucking trust these people. Can you talk about economics with a breed? Look, look, I'm just saying we can put pettiness aside and just have a cold theoretical investigation about these things, right? But to be clear, like, I don't like them personally, and I don't fucking trust them at all, to be clear. But
yeah, I agree. I don't trust leftists any more than I can throw them. I mean, I trust infrared more than I trust leftists, if we're being honest. And I do like that he's saying here that we need to have it be more like he's talking cold, theoretical, economic shit. And honestly, that's where I think JU is a really valuable resource to any community. He's really into the weeds in that stuff, right? And you might be saying, well, he's irrelevant, he's a backwards, he's his old man, he's stodgy. It's like, no, he knows what he's talking about. He has a pretty clear idea on how the so-called American system works, and how the so-called fascist state operates. He's just one guy, but I think he has a pretty clear idea on it. Like, I think he would absolutely take someone like Michael Hudson to task over some of the things that Michael Hudson says. That's just me saying it. That's because I know JU. That's because I've read Hudson's work, and I've read what Hudson has to say on what the exact problem is. Because Hudson's not a Marxist, right? He uses Marxian language sometimes, but he's not a labor theorist. He doesn't think the labor theory of values holds any real explanatory power, right? And remember, Hudson trained people at the Federal Reserve, a lot of people at the Federal Reserve. This is why we think we've claimed that there might be actually something as a red Fed, right? That they kind of have an idea of how to forestall and extend the shelf life of capital because they've read Marx's work. And they know that Marx's work has some merit to it, if not a ton of merit to it. But no, I agree with Haz here that there has to be something very, very specific about how we go about problematizing the last 50 years, especially since we've gone off the gold standard. Now, I've watched some of his I don't know if I want to call them acolytes or not, but like some of the people that who listen to his stream who are maybe just like what I would call like has clones. Like I'm gonna say the person's name because I don't want to be cryptic about it. But like I was watching a debate with the guy Yankee Tanky, and he was debating. Who was he debating? Dylan Burns. Is that his name? Dylan Burns. Um, and he was just regurgitating what Has said. I don't think he had any understanding. So he's talking about the enforced industrial revolution. He's talking about we actually live under socialism, et cetera, and so forth. And I was like, all right, well, okay, if we're going to teach people things, and even if you're going to teach them those kinds of things or whatever, at least teach them how to understand what they're talking about. Because you have to like it's one thing to watch a streamer and regurgitate the things that they're saying. It's another thing to understand what they're actually trying to say, right? Even if I don't agree with Has on it, like I don't think a lot of his the people who watch him know what the fuck he's talking about. That's just my opinion, though. But so like I don't know, we need to deprogram people, but we need to maybe again just to keep reiterating this, I think the easiest selling point is to get them to understand how the state is extending the shelf life of capitalism, right? And how the state eats away at their people's wages, and how the state is the most unproductive sector of the economy. You know, I follow an account called Bullshit Jobs, and they don't even get it. They're calling for an efficient economy, and at the same time, they call for universal basic income. I mean, how fucking like what kind of cognitive dissonance is that? On the one hand, you recognize that wage labor is dead. On the other hand, you said, well, why don't we just print people's wages? Very weird, right? And so there needs to be some education on this, but I'm not sure to the degree that we need to like be reintroduced, like have actual like build what we're going to do, build classrooms or like make videos. I think Midwestern Marx already kind of does that, right? There's all kinds of like institutions that already like are trying to educate people on these things, and I'm not sure it's necessary. And again, it's because I don't think the political economy that we live under is as opaque as we think it is. It's just a matter of people's solution to it is never get rid of the state and never go after budgets. And we have to figure out how to retrain, for example, people for new jobs when we should be thinking about how to get rid of the jobs that are already in existence. Anyways, let's get back to Has.
And I don't like them personally, understand? But I'm putting the new Red Scare first. The shit Keffels is talking about, where never since the 1950s have we had this much of a tanky popularity. It's like, fuck it, man, it's not about me anymore. Like, let's put everything into this.
Sorry, I'm sorry to stop it again, but I'm really glad Has said that, because that really changed my perspective on him a lot, because I don't know him. And originally my perception of him was just like, is this guy for real? Is he on the level? Is he really, or is he just trying to, or is he just like an egomaniac? You know, he could be both and also be into the communist thing. But like, I was happy he said this, because I was thinking to myself, okay, good. This is, yeah, you're right. It's not about any of us. It is about communism, and we have to have that one track mind about it. And so I'm really happy he said that, because that gave me a lot more confidence in him, because I'm a fucking old timer. All right. JU and I are the old timers. And so like we look at the young people for our we don't have much hope in the young people, but we look for the young people to think this way, because we're I'll speak for myself. I'm disgusted, absolutely disgusted by online culture. I am absolutely horrified by it, that people just do anything and everything to get attention. It's because, Has talks about an information economy. No, it's an attention economy. People just whoring themselves out for get eyes on them, because they must have like they don't believe in object permanence. They think if people don't look at them, they don't exist or something, and so like I'm happy has said this, and I'm happy he's committed to it, and I'm happy it's not just a character he's playing. Now I understand he has to play a character sometimes, maybe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in order to generate enough views to become relevant, right? And not just because no one would ever listen to me. I'm fucking relatively boring as fuck. But who wants to hear me talk about, everything that led up to going off the gold standard? Like, no one wants to listen to that. Whereas Haz is like entertaining. He's a little bit too mercurial for my taste, but like, then again, who cares, right? So I'm glad he said this. I'm glad he said this because I was like, it gave me some reassurance that he wasn't just in it for the popularity, rather he was the popularity was more of a driver for people's maybe interest in communism, but also just to have a voice again within the discourse of that's not just some mainstream bullshit or some institutionalized uh, discourse that people like Vouch or Hassan, and I don't know any other bigger streamers than that for some reason, that they follow that sort of party line, and so, and to his point about like followers and leaders, I think a lot that's a truth. That's a truism. Like, people just don't know that they don't have to be followers. They don't realize that there is not just an alternative to how to reach people, but that alternative is already in existence, actually. Right? I mean, I don't think he would have written The Rise of MAGA Communism without realizing that that alternative is already in existence. Right? In whatever its nascent form may be in MAGA. I don't think they're a nascent in its nascent form. I think they are a mature, radical movement unto themselves, to give them credit. So let's continue.
Like, let's build that, motherfucker. Like, yes, Jackson Hinkle's the #1 account on Twitter, and that Second Thought guy is very popular, straight up. And the D program, as much as I don't like them, they're pretty successful. So let's double down on that shit and plus Midwestern Marks, and let's create an ML think tank lobby, Like, shit, we don't gotta fucking agree on everything, but let's just focus on ML. Let's focus on the 1950s Red Scare Part 2 type of shit. Like, let's initiate a Red Scare, motherfucker. Yes, a specter, American specter of communism. I've been fighting for this since day one.
Again, this is maybe quibbling a little bit, but the specter that America fears, and all economies fear, is in. If you wanted to give a economic explanation for what they fear in relative to what he's talking about in communism, it's not necessarily the communist movement. It's they're afraid of deflation. That's what they're afraid of. Every single communist state is afraid of deflation, and we can actually bring that about, right? That's what they're ultimately afraid of. They're not afraid of a communist movement as such taking over the state anymore at this point. I don't think, right? The only reason why they were afraid of MAGA, I think, and they're still afraid of MAGA, is because of their positions on getting rid of these governmental agencies, which would require reducing in their social spending, and so that's why MAGA is extremely dangerous to them. We're not really dangerous to them, and maybe what Jackson and Haz are saying are somewhat dangerous to them, but like typically speaking, no. So I think on a general level, probably not. To the specific points of these notable communists or socialist streamers and or social media influencers, no, I think their relevance is still just to maybe be at that level propagandists, right? Which is fine. I'm a propagandist myself. Not very good at it because I'm not like I don't consider myself a content creator. However, I think if Jackson, for example, started to focus on like budget deficits, because remember that doesn't appear in the MAGA communism quote unquote platform, but um, then you would see a lot more flack from him, or he would be catching a lot more flack. I'm sorry, from the state, um, because that is the one thing that they do not want you to go after. Because remember, that's not just a domestic thing. That is a international thing. Everyone's investing in our debt, right? Um, so you're going after. That's why they fuck. That's why they fucking went after Trump. Trump was fucking with same reason why they went after Bernie Madoff. You don't fuck with other rich people's money. All right, that's like rule number one of rich people world. Don't fuck with their money. So Trump was fucking with other people's money, or at least threatening to, by coming up with at least some new formation of how the U.S. The government interacted with the world, and who those players were going to be, and threats of we're going to drain the swamp, which means cut funding. So, all right, let's continue. Again, that was just a quibble, but
And we already are we have good relations with Midwestern Marks already. I love those guys. They aren't terrible. I think they're unprincipled and I think they're opportunistic. I don't like their character, and I don't like them. I don't like them, right? Personally. But it's not about me personally, right? It's for the good of what we're trying to do. If they are good on their claims and commitments, of course, it's not just the woke stuff. It's just like that whole crowd has a different mentality when it comes to comedy. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember these people used to take clips out of context and take shit serious. And, we can't fuck with that, really. But if they can get over it, we can get over it, like straight up. We didn't even shoot the first shot. They did.
That's interesting. Maybe I might be could be accused of that myself, because I'm not sure what's serious sometimes what they're saying and what they're not serious. It's very difficult to tell. But then again, that's not on us or me for that matter. It's like if you can't be clear in what you're saying. I mean, I love the shit out of stand-up comedy, and so maybe you guys just aren't funny. That could also be the case. So it's not on me to like detect your humor. But again, that's just a quibble. I'm not even sure why that's relevant either. I guess it's relevant to the point for people who are taking things out of complete context. Whereas when I've clipped his stuff, it's usually been about like economic stuff regarding the state, because I don't want the state to have any to do. I mean, I'm hardcore vehemently against all social spending, and that does if you guys are going to say you're Stalinist libertarians or whatever, I think you guys should be that for that as well. So I'm not sure why that's a anarchist position as opposed to just a position of no more social spending on anything, even your subsidies for gyms and subsidies for things that you think are going to benefit the people. No, we can do it ourselves. So that's just another minor point.
But like, I don't know why, but it's like, I want it because of this conflict. I kind of want. Am I just too good of a person? Like, I kind of want to be like, you know what? You're a cringe leftist. But a lot of my viewers used to be cringe leftists. So it's like maybe you can mature from that somehow, you know? Maybe put all the pettiness aside and there can be a way to mature. But I don't know. Again, don't assume I'm certain about this because I'm not. Because I remember Gen Dong. Like the first motherfuckers to cancel me was Gen Dong, but that was because of Bay Area, right? But like a lot of them, they're obsessed with the trans flag leftists. It's like, damn, just
Okay, so he's talking about a lot of things I don't know about that must be from lore from before I started caring about infrared or whatever. So, this is kind of what I was talking about in one of my posts where I was like, Haz is always like, uh, this I'll give him credit for, which is funny to me, which is always like, am I too good of a person? As like, or like, I am really the most humble person I know. And I was like, this is, I don't know if he's being serious or not, but that is to me very funny. That is funny to me because it's like, it's like, what a weird thing to say. But it's not about being a good person. It's about being a rational person. You know, it's about, oh, we have to actually do come together. Like I've never said that I wouldn't wouldn't want to work with infrared. I would rather work with infrared than work with um, any of these other groups who, you know, because I've never been part of an organization. 30 plus years of, you know, doing this stupid shit, and I've never been part of an organization. You know, Haz reminds me of my nephew, who's actually 4 years older than he is. A little bit. My nephew will be saying fucking wild shit like that. It's like, am I too good of a person? And I'll be like, I don't know, man. It's like, I don't know. I'm not even sure what you're trying to say. Because he'll be saying that about like other like drama that he gets involved in. It's like, I shouldn't forgive these motherfuckers, but am I too good of a person? It's like, I don't know. But that's a funny thing to say for Haz to say, anyways, or for anyone to say.
the LGBT thing is the biggest string attached. And it's like, it'd be one thing if this was just like they happen to be that. We don't got to be friends with them, right? So we wouldn't care. But it's like the flags, like mixing that up with our traditional communist flags. It's like, it's so, you don't want to be near that, right? And they'll be like, well, that's how we feel about the American flag. But it's like, but like the American flag is only offensive to fringe people in America. They're like, well, black people are offended by it. No, they're not. Have you ever been to a fucking black barbecue on 4th of July? It's full.
Yes, I have. I have black family members, or rather, I have Cape Verdean family members. I've been to more barbecues than any of you motherfuckers. Right on Rosetta Street in Dorchester. So yeah, there's I don't again understand the obsession with the flag thing. I think if you just had an American flag, it'd be fine, I guess. I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I don't even really want to entertain the idea of caring about flags or insignias or anything like that. But yeah, but I kind of do agree with him about the idea of like, oh, we have to include the trans flag. It's like, yeah, it's like that's kind of like something that's going to be repellent. But I'll tell you what, if MAGA people see a fucking red flag, they are not going to be thinking about fucking a bullfight. They're going to be thinking about that thing that they said they hate that for years. So like probably just go with the American flag. And I think Haz does maybe say that. I'm not sure. But that would be my go-to if because then that's really thinking about, okay, we're just focusing on America. And because there's something also to be said about that, and I'm sorry for anyone who lives in Germany or the United Kingdom or Australia or Japan or China or Korea or in the Middle East. You don't matter, and I mean that in the nicest, most polite way possible. In terms of political economy, you don't fucking matter whatsoever. You're not the super fastest state running trillions of dollars in deficits and running up trillions of dollars of debt, right? There's only one country that's doing that and absorbing all the world's excess capital, and it's the United States. So our actions matter, right? Because I think, Che Guevara has that quote about something, and I don't give a shit about Che Guevara, but he does have that quote about, like, I admire you, North Americans, because you're in the belly of the beast or something. It's like, he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. He just thought he was talking about the imperial core. So he had no political economic context to what he was actually talking about. But he was saying something true, which is the fact that if you get rid of state deficits, profits go to fucking zero. Not just here, but everywhere. And then we could start doing all the nice things and building things and, really taking advantage of the general intellect and taking advantage of the means of production, et cetera, and so forth, and advancing and accelerating as quickly as possible into the next stage of our development as a society, both organically and within the framework of Haz's obsession with the fourth industrial revolution. We won't even be calling them fourth and fifth industrial revolutions anymore. We'll just be calling them revolutions. So
all of American, they're not offended by that. Well, people overseas are. Yeah, maybe, sure. But we're not overseas. We're in America, okay? But it's like, whatever, man. It's like, I guess you can't agree. I guess they can't agree with us, I guess we can't agree.
No, we can. We can, man. Have some faith. I'm not a religious person, but I do have some faith in that.
But is second thought that stupid? I feel like he's hiding his power level. Do you guys agree with me? I feel like Hugo Pink and Hakeem and second thought off stream do talk about these problems, and they're like, we have a problem of like these cancel culture woke leftists, they're so silly, but they don't say that publicly because they don't want to be divisive and upset their communities and the autistic people in their communities, so they play it safe. But they can't be that stupid, right? Like, they gotta know the truth. They can't be this fucking stupid. No way. Hugo Pink has to know this shit, But is Hugo Pink, has he bought into the whole LaRouche stuff that it's all a LaRouche conspiracy? Is he the one who, let me check. Fuck, I think he did, didn't he? I mean, yeah, but but like that takes 2 seconds to debunk, so it's not really a big deal. It's like it takes 2 seconds to debunk. You see, why can't leftists enjoy anything?
As the vet from the right or center. Weakness, but rage and anger that guides us. A rage towards an insufferable world we just can't seem to swallow and accept. An anger that builds up with every minute we have to spend pretending everything's all right. Ask you to stomach through this anti-sectarian utopian dream of mine that you have far more in common with workers of all nations than you do with the self-help coping mechanism, a way to get our daily, weekly, and monthly fix in order for that little dopamine rush to stop us from thinking about our lack of true self-fulfillment, that in the current system, be it mindless shopping, that most things are turned into fast fiction of knowing you had no place to be.
You know what this feels like? This feels like after the Sino-Soviet split, when like the Eastern Bloc was right about to collapse, the Chinese actually started reaching out to like the Warsaw Pact governments, and they're like, yo, listen, all right, it's not our opinion that you should dismantle the socialist system, and we can like come together again. You don't have to take it this far. We can come together. Like in the last instance, despite the Sino-Soviet split, like the Chinese still decided to put the interests of world communism first. right? They had issues with the Soviet Union and its states, but they didn't want to see them dismantle socialism. And likewise, we don't want to see Second Thought and the deprogram get canceled off of the internet. I mean, we don't care, actually. I'm just going to be honest. But we don't want to see communism become unpopular in any way.
Again, communism is probably as popular as it's probably less popular than Sharia law in the United States. Okay, if you if you had to poll it, there's not really good polling data for this. The only polling data I can find is people who are from the former Soviet countries. So it's really difficult to talk about what is and what is not popular. Like I said, the metric of Jackson being a popular communist, or the most popular communist in the world, I suppose, if you want to look at it that way, using his reach on X, or I don't know what the metric is, social capital, I think it's considered. Not really that good of a metric. I would say the tide is turning and shifting on on the subjects that he's talking about and have talked about. It just hasn't led to anything. That's been my big gripe. And so if you want to if you just want to popularize something, really, I hate to just fucking beat this dead fucking horse, is that popularized hatred against the state. You know, I was a little disillusioned when, like, for example, when they overturned Roe v. Wade. I thought, okay, wow, this is probably going to get women on board with realizing that the state is their enemy. Wrong. Totally wrong on my part. Just like I thought, okay, well, we have another war that we're fighting, right? Because I never made one. I've never made one comment on the Ukraine-Russia war. I was just watching it because I think I don't care about it, and I was just saw it as another opportunity to get people to hate the state. Wrong, right? People were just considered more. People only saw it as a opportunity to talk about foreign policy or reduce spending to foreign policy, and reduce America first, or I guess in Jackson's case, America only, as a matter of what we could be spending domestically rather than spending abroad, right? Whereas I don't want any spending, of course. So this is my dead horse that I'm going to continue to beat. But that's where we can really have, I think, a discussion is on the state. Seems like everyone hates them. I don't hear people talking about the billionaire class right now, and people talking about, well, I guess that's not true. I guess fucking Musk, other billionaires talking about other billionaires. Musk was talking about George Soros a couple days ago or something. But I don't think that is what people necessarily care about. I don't think people are thinking George Soros is causing inflation in the United States, or they don't think Elon Musk is the reason why they're poor. I think that's more of a lefty kind of thing. You know, like, they're stealing our surplus value. It's like, okay, then let's put an end to surplus value. That seems like a temporal phenomenon that we need to address. It's not a real substance. It's not like you could find it on the periodic, chart or something like that. It's based on a social relation. So we have to reduce hours of labor in order to put a cap on how much profit could be produced and realized in the workday. And so that is organizationally which we should be thinking of, which has a direct effect on the state, which I've written about endlessly, but I guess no one cares. So, but anyways, this is about Haz, not me.
But unfortunately, maybe I'm wrong, but it's also possible that, to be honest, I'm going to be real. With Keffels, Destiny, and Vosh, plus the entire institutions of the hegemony going against you, I think we might see a scenario where like all of the red lip tankies are just going to get gobbled up. They're going to get gobbled up, deplatformed, and they're going to have no way to resist it because like they didn't do what we did where we actually understood correctly. They were like, "Wait, we consider ourselves leftists." But all these leftists are like attacking us, calling us fascists and red fash, and we were like, yeah, that's what happened to us. And Chris.
Leftoid communist support of Palestine only goes as far as the Palestinians being victims.
Yeah.
As soon as a larger offensive takes place and they start winning, they will bail.
Yeah, you're right. But we're going to stay consistent, you know? But what I'm trying to say is like all these red libs, like Second Thought and all them people, what I really feel like is they're not prepared to attack leftism, and leftism is what's gonna destroy them.
Yeah, 100%. JU and I have been going after leftists for over a decade now, since I've known him, but I've been going after them for fucking forever. And you get shit before the internet age. It was less like dogpiling because they didn't have the ability to do it. But now they're gonna. I think I agree with Haz here in the sense that they're gonna start catching hell, and now they're going to be considered quote unquote the red fascists, and they're going to be discarded as the useful idiots that they've been for the establishment, right? And it's not about who's like most communist or whatever. That's not what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned about who, because leftism is a disease in the United States, and I don't even mean that culturally. I really do mean it at the level of they defend every fucking aspect of the welfare state. Okay, that's what I mean by it. I don't give a shit if you're gay or have different colored hair. Like I'm a pretty normal guy, you know. People would probably think I was a nerd because I play chess and stuff, but like I think that chess is a good thing to know how to play, right? But like and I don't look like a leftist, or maybe I do. I don't know, but I don't think I do. I'm not like one of these people who with blue hair and green hair and whatever. I wear a hoodie and jeans every day of my life, and I'm a pretty big guy. I'm like 6'3", 230. You know, I can hold my own. I'm not a social conservative because I don't care about any of this shit. I think it just, for me, it's always just clouded my judgment a little bit because I've always been like, okay, this stuff is, I don't want to be thinking about communism in terms of sociocultural stuff. I want to just be thinking of it in terms of like, what is the weakness of capital? How do we get to communism faster than capital is already trying to do it? And all the other stuff has always only ever gotten in my way. And I think even just critiquing infrared has gotten in my way of doing that. Because their analysis of MAGA has helped JU and I out a lot on clarifying our positions. So our interest in them is really limited to that at this point. But again, I don't know any of this internecine drama between them and all these other groups. I've never heard of Akeem. I've never heard of Second Thought. I've never heard of any of these other people that they're talking about. But I believe them. I mean, I believe them that they're going to get gobbled up and they're going to drown in their own sort of short-sightedness on who the real enemy is and what the real war is that we're fighting. I agree with that.
And their careers. Because, like, look, imagine in America if we have a European style, like, banning and censorship of pro-totalitarian propaganda in favor of Stalinism. All these people would disappear overnight, but we would still be around because we've already created the necessary underground network to withstand not only censorship, but ostracization, social ostracization from institutional leftism. And they have not withstood that and built their own hegemony from scratch, their own counter hegemony. So it's like they're not psychologically prepared for the cancellation in store for them. They're just not. I mean, they're going to start getting called red fascists by Antifa. Like, I see that happening.
This is something that I wrote in my own article about the underground communism thing, or underworld communism, is that the January Sixers also didn't have this in their brains, right? They pulled their one little trick, and now they are going to be on the intelligence community's radar for the rest of their lives. Everyone them and everyone they know are going to be on the intelligence community's radar forever. They're going to be on a list, right? And so I 100% agree with that. That they didn't. That the left has no real tactics when it comes to avoiding this thing. That's why I suggested in my article that we do need to build something completely underground and completely off the radar. But this is a weird argument that he's making. And maybe I'm confusing it, and maybe I'm not understanding it. And maybe someone can help clarify it if they're ever listen to this. Is the idea that you're at the same time extremely okay? I think now I understand what he's saying. He's saying it's because they've distanced themselves from institutional, um, like liberalism and leftism and stuff like that. That they're not at the mercy of them, right? And then that because they've done their own thing and they're not adjacent to them, that they can't be canceled because of that, right? They're cancelable only at the level of deplatforming, right? But they can't be destroyed per se, like you could destroy someone's career through whatever means, or their movement through whatever means, because you've latched onto them and you've used them as a sort of you use them as sort of a conduit for your ideas or your own movements, ideology or something like that. So okay, now I understand. I had to think it through for a second. That he's saying that because he's done something from scratch, that they really can't take that away from him, that the way that they could do it from these people who are relying on certain advertisers or certain establishment, let's say not benefactors, but and not patrons, but let's just say and not backers, but let's just say people who endorse them, right, or give them the green the thumbs up of approval, so that sort of thing. Whereas infrared doesn't have to necessarily worry about this. So let's just continue. I think that's what he's saying. I could be wrong though.
I can see Antifa coming out and being like, "Yep, red fash, even the transgender ones all need to be bashed." Yo, Kami Farabi, let's go. I could see that happening, right? And then when that happens, they're not going to know what to do, and they're just going to straight up die off politically. I already see stage one of this. Stage one of this has been the death of Dengism, quote unquote, right? All these people have pretty much become anti-revisionist Maoists. Very few of them still defend the People's Republic of China. The Dengist red libs are done. Those guys died off. They all became quote unquote Maoists.
Yeah, sure, whatever. But all of leftism has been dead for 50 years, and 90 years really, but 50 years at least. Marxism's been dead for 50 years. I don't know if he's ever read George Kafentzis's essay about the end of Bretton Woods about basically, and we mentioned this, Jay and I mentioned this in our podcast about how when Nixon goes off the gold standard, Marxists didn't know whether Marxism was dead or capitalism was dead, right? Because something was happening that they didn't think was possible, right? You study this entire time going, gold is money, and then Nixon goes, nah. He goes, nah, it's not. But they didn't understand the underlying reason why he had to do this. However, there's also a specific reason why, and maybe you're not interested in this, why like I'm not a Leninist or a Maoist or an ist of any sort of kind. And it really has to do with the fact that I'm really just preoccupied with the United States because they're the hegemon. They represent globality. They are. I'm not invested really heavily into Stalinism or Leninism because I don't think they adequately help me explain. Believe it or now, I'm not a Keynesian either, but Keynesianism helps me explain the current political economy we're under better than any of those two guys do, right? Or better than some of these philosophers do. Like Hegel doesn't help me understand it, and that's not just me either. I mean, Jay has been a very good mentor in this case for me, right? And who to read and who not to read, and who to avoid reading, and who and what. Because he's much old. I'm old, but he's much older than I am, right? So he's already gone down this road of being. He was a Marxist-Leninist, and he had part of Marxist-Leninist parties in the United States. The October League, et cetera, and so forth. So like he's already gone through all this, and so like the revivalism to him and to me seem unnecessary, but it's not like it's not like a red line for me, because I think, for example, if you want to talk about the patriotism part of it, right? Let's just say I don't agree with it, but let's say I agree with it on this level, that if we just focused on the United States and we focused on what was most detrimental to the state, then you have my ears, because then that's something that we can agree on. As long you want to add the patriotism part to it, that's fine. I want to add the part where we defund the fucking state. And if you want to call that patriotism, sure, be my guest. Because really, I don't think about any other country besides the United States. And maybe you don't think that's, maybe you think that's a little bit careless on my part, because geopolitics is not my thing. That's just another reason why I could never be on the debate circuit. I don't know enough about geopolitics, and I fully admit that, because I haven't focused on it in 30 years. Like even like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, I haven't cared about it since the Second Intifada. Right? I haven't. That's what was that? 22 years ago, 23 years ago. Have not cared about it. Doesn't mean I don't care about their cause. It just means that like I don't. It's not relevant to me anymore. Like I realized that after even like 2003 with the Iraq War, I was like, oh, we're not making any dent in anything here. You know, I mean. I was at all those protests as well, I was at the WTO protests. I was at the fucking Occupy Wall Street. Nothing got accomplished. All right. And actually, what Haz is talking here is relevant to the Occupy Wall Street, because in Occupy Wall Street, what happened? We all agreed that this was bullshit. This was unfair. This is not our fault. We shouldn't be bailing these people out. And then what did it immediately devolve into? Sectarian bullshit. I was there and I had to watch these people go, should we be making Zuccotti Park handicap accessible? And I was thinking to myself, maybe we should be making these trees into places that we should be lynching Jamie Dimon. I don't know if you're allowed to say that on YouTube, and I don't care. But that's what I was thinking the entire time. We should be, or Lloyd Blankfein, who was the CEO of Goldman Sachs at the time, or Henry Paulson, who was the Treasury Secretary at the time. That's all I was ever thinking about. the entire time. I wasn't thinking about. Should I be checking my privilege right about now? No, fuck that shit. So Haz is spot on about all that stuff for sure, because that's been going on long before, you know, they made it a crucial point to try to distance themselves from, which is good on them.
What happened to yesterday's VOD? I just love following the rules, and I do everything in my, I'm just what VOD? What do you mean? No, everything good from that VOD, it'll be uploaded to my YouTube, so don't worry. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I play it smart, guys. I know how to play smart. MIG, let's go.
They do know that leftists are a problem. They are just afraid to say anything. It was just like in the Bernie movement, the progressives hated the woke people, but we couldn't say anything or be canceled.
Yeah, true. But no, I think we're going to see a big cancellation of tankies. Of red lib tankies. And we're going to be the only ones left. And it's just like China during the fall of the Eastern Bloc. We're actually doing what China did, and hey, we're writing letters to them now, being like, hey, listen, we don't want to see the total destruction of these other tank. I mean, we want to see the red libs destroyed, but we don't want the proliferation of propaganda sympathetic to communism with a capital C to die off. Commie Farabi, let's go. Straight up, we don't want to see Hakim's Soviet apologia disappear from the internet. We don't want to see that. So this is our words of warning. Just like the Chinese sent them, they're probably not. And just like the Eastern Bloc, they didn't heed their warning. But, the offer's on the table if they're wise enough to see what it is. That's just the truth. And we don't need them. We don't need them at all. We don't need them. But it's do you want to see the victory of American communism with a capital C? Are you maturely committed to this? Because I promise you, here's my warning to all red lib tankies, okay? They're like the Mensheviks. They're in the minority. Us and Jackson, we're the Bolsheviks. They're the Mensheviks. So here's our message to them, all right? The institutional liberalism that you still are somehow committed to is going to wipe you out, okay? You're going to be labeled as a red fascist and a genocide denier, and it's going to work. Keffels went to D.C. with Destiny and Vosh. Keffels is a glowy. They probably a Fed, literally straight up Fed, okay? CIA or something. I don't know. MI6, CIA, whatever. But they clearly are working for someone now, okay, as an influencer. The reason Keffels and Destiny are not collaborating is because they work for the same people. So they're co-workers, right? Keffels got Destiny banned from Twitch, and they're working together now against Second Thought. You know what I mean? So what I'm trying to say to these dumb red lib tankies, they're coming for you. They're coming for you. Don't say we didn't warn you, because they're coming. And you don't even fucking deserve this warning, by the way. Fuck you. But we're going to tell it to you anyway. They're coming for you. They're going to call you a red fascist. They're going to cancel you. They're going to ostracize you from institutional leftism. And you're going to be shocked and surprised, because all that talk about transphobia and racism and all that woke stuff is not going to fly to them. It's not going to fly to them. It's not going to have the efficacy that it used to have. It doesn't matter how you articulate your language. It's not going to work. You will be treated in the same way a neo-Nazi is. And there's nothing you can do to stop that unless you fully sever the ties you have to institutional liberalism, like now, fully sever those ties. No, there is no pan-leftism. There's no leftist coalition of anarchists, and there's no such thing. There's no such thing. There's no leftist popular front. You guys are going to be hunted to extinction.
That's interesting when I heard him say the pan leftism thing, because I've been saying that for a while as well, that the state will eventually just turn on them once they're done with them. I can't comment on any of the drama that I don't know anything about. I don't know anything about Hassan Piker and Keffels and their relationship or second thought. I don't know anything about it, so I'm not going to comment on it. His warning could be prescient in the fact that it's a good time to like abandon ship. And there's a nautical term called dead reckoning. And the left is in the idea behind dead reckoning is if you start from a false point, you end at a false point. And the left has been sort of on a dead reckoning for many decades now. And they're only now just arriving at that false point of which has always been leftism, and which has always been what Haz is talking about here, which is institutional liberalism. They haven't been able to sort of like a virus. They haven't been able to clear it out of their system. It's the leftism runs deep, and now I've made accusations that infrared has some of these tendencies, and those tendencies are really not on the cultural end, and they're not at the end of their attempts to start from scratch per se. It's the leftism is their attachment to the state, right? Of we're going to do good things for the people, and they may have a difference on how I see it, but when I hear Jackson say like communism is government put to use to do good things for the to the benefit of its citizens, that's like Kenneth Galbraith kind of shit. John Kenneth Galbraith, that's not really communism from my perspective. That's a leftist tendency that I see with them. That is something that I think they need to shed, because it's one of those situations where, okay, if you don't get, let's say you don't get rid of the state. All right. Now let's say you're out of power. Right. What happens? That state gets used against you now, isn't it? Or doesn't it? Right? Well, let's say that you form your third party, your communist alternative third party, and let's say you win. All right? And you don't dismantle the state. It'll be used against you. I know this because we just saw it happen in Syriza. It was 8 years ago, but it happened. They didn't get rid of their state, and it was used immediately against them. And it's going to be used against them until they're absolutely nothing. There's nothing left of Syriza. Because Syriza was what? Syriza was also formed on a coalition, right? The same kind of coalition that Infrared is talking about. Maybe not to the same extent, because they could, again, Syriza had already started out as a sort of radical Keynesianism coalition party. But so it's not quite the same. They were not like Marxist Leninists, I don't think. So his warning is, I think, warranted, and I also think he's right to also on some level say fuck you to them. But I really hope he doesn't. I hope he somehow reaches out to them, and because it's going to be an ego thing. He's going to want them to like come crawling to them or to him or something like that on like their hands or knees and like begging for forgiveness. And it's like, this is not how this is going to work. It has to be it can't just be like charitable, or it has to be at the level of like, listen, I've called everyone who's a communist comrade out of respect, because I think if you're a communist and you're a comrade, right? And I don't do that to be corny or cheesy. I do it out of respect. So it's except for some of the cocksuckers who were fucking really dogged me. Fuck them. I agree with Haz on that level. But like some people who went like way over the line. But like but let's I forgot if there's any more to this. Let's see if he says anything else.
Okay. That's our warning to you. You came after us in that same way, by the way. You, Vosh, Destiny, Anarchists, Social Democrat, whatever. You all came against us to do that, and we survived. We survived because we had the ability to survive from the beginning because we were never committed to the institutional leftism like you are. So when we got canceled, shit was normal. We didn't give a fuck, right? But you're not psychologically prepared for that. You're not ideologically prepared for that. You're not theoretically prepared for that, right? So it's my warning to you right now. That's what's going to fucking happen to you. So there you go. Don't say I didn't warn you. Like, second thought, when I knew it when he got deplatformed from Nebula, I'm like, now is the beginning of the end for that dude. They're coming after him. YouTube's going to come after him. He might Hakeem. How long is Hakeem going to have his YouTube channel? They were in the good graces for so long, but this Israel-Palestine shit, I promise, will change everything. And look, these people are not principled. Like, fuck them. Look what happened Russia-Ukraine. They're fucking liberal. All they did was kiss liberal ass. These red-lip tankies are libtard ass lickers. And we don't forget that. And they teamed up with DNC Democrat liberals to come after us, and we will never forget that. Right? However, in vain, yo, sub, let's go. We're still trying to speak some sense into these people. We're still trying to speak some sense into them. Why? Because we are the ones putting the best interests of communism first. You understand? So there it is.
Okay, so there it is. I can't summarize all of that, but from the standpoint of the idea that this Israeli-Palestinian conflict is opening up other people's eyes onto who the enemy is, and can this be an opportunity for us to come together? I say yes, because that's the argument that I made in my own, again, blog piece, is that their inability to know how to solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is going to have to force them to re-examine their strategies, and their strategies so far are pretty terrible, right? I don't know if infrared strategy is going to be any better. I know they're forming an organization soon. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if their proof of concept yields anything in that regard. But I'm optimistic by the fact that he's even thinking about this, because it's a really good sign that he's coming around to the idea that there is a window of opportunity to unite the people who there's going to be, because there's the inevitable fallout that's coming, especially if he's seeing that all these streamers are now going after people, and people aren't going to put up with it. This is why I don't really post a lot, and I don't fuck with these people, is because they'll call you everything under the sun as well. We had to deal with this years ago online, where people, you're a fascist, you're a right-wing communist, you're a libertarian communist, you're this. It's like, they'll turn on you very quickly if your ideas do not align with the I'm not even sure what their ideas are. I wouldn't call it orthodox, but like traditional Marxism. And I don't mean traditional Marxism in the way infrared maybe means it, but maybe I'm talking about traditional Marxism in the sense that like um, if you start talking about like abolishing the welfare state, then they all of a sudden think like you're an operative trying to ruin what Marx was talking about. Marx never in his wildest dreams would have thought of uh, of keeping a welfare state going, especially since he knew it would have been the very thing that's keeping capitalism alive, right? If anyone's ever read uh, Murray Rothbard, he has a quote about Marx, and he says, the one good thing about Marx is he wasn't a Keynesian. And yeah, I agree with that. So, can there be a much broader coalition later on? Maybe Haz is just talking about initially, okay, we want to absorb some of the, or maybe not absorb, because it's weird because it's this thing where you want to have you grow an organization, but at the same time, infrared doesn't want to like I guess you would call it like dilute its product. Like just to give from the drug world, right? Like he's probably considering infrared like like pure uncut cocaine. He doesn't want to dilute it with some of these red libs or whatever, or red lib tankies or something. And so he wants to have the real people that have like the real um, deal, so to speak. So maybe that's what he's thinking about. Um, However, you're going to have to make room somewhere and make concessions somewhere, and there has to be some um, democratic approach later on down the road if you want to expand. And you can always make, like, for example, like when they formed the commission, they were always able to kick people off the commission and get rid of people. I mean, the way they got rid of people was through murder, but like we could always vote people out of a commission if you did form such a commission, right? And let's say infrared has a seat at the table, and let's say some other major party, or say not major party, but lesser third party, socialist party, has a seat at the table, and unions have a seat at the table, and even MAGA people have a seat at the table, and other dissidents have a seat at the table, right? We just have to. I'm really serious about this. Our focus really should just be about messaging about the state. We can still talk to the average working class people, but talk to them in dollars and cents terms. I mean, you want to have a be normal campaign? That's what you talk to them about, dollars and cents. Don't go up to them and say, "Hey, actually, did you know that the Holodomor was not actually that's not was a propaganda campaign or whatever? It wasn't as bad as you thought." It's like, no, um, they don't want to care. They don't care. No one in America cares about that. You'll get some conservatives and some MAGA people who are going to maybe fight you tooth and nail on it, but then ask them basic, normal, everyday people questions. Is society working for you right now? For you, is the welfare state working for you? Do you want more time with your family? Do you want more time to, I don't know, participate in your church or your community? Do you want more input in your community and have more control over what goes on in your community? Do you want to feel safer in your community? Right? Well, we don't think the Republicans or the Democrats or libertarians or uh, the state has the solution for that. We think you do. We think the working class does. We think the people do. Let's just maybe be more general. Human beings have the solutions to those problems, and we don't want you to. And we don't want you to have these false choices anymore. Um, that's how I would speak to them, and that's been pretty successful to me when I talk to people like that. They don't. I tell them straight out I'm a communist, and they tell me, and their initial reaction, of course, is like, oh, did you know that Stalin killed 100 billion zillion people, and did you know that it's never worked everywhere? And I just go, okay, that's fine. I don't even argue with them. I go, okay, I agree, whatever. What's working in America right now? You tell me, and what's not working, and I'll tell you how we can solve it. Right? And then most of my answers are less state, less spending, less government. You want to solve the border crisis? All right? And subsidies. It's a very simple answer. It fits right into their paradigm of less government spending and less what you would call like preferential treatment over like one crop over like or one commodity over another, right? You want to stop exit migration from some of these nations like Mexico, and corn subsidies. It's pretty simple. It's actually not that hard. Or make Mexico enforce their own fucking their labor laws. Do you want your wages to go up? Work less. Supply and demand. Not that hard. Should not that be that hard of a sell. Matter of fact, you can sell it pretty easily to conservatives, couldn't you? Right? Hey, did you know that this was on your platform in 1968? Did you know this was on your platform in 1908? Did you know this was on your platform in 1932? Yeah. Isn't that interesting that it was under Herbert Hoover's platform, but it wasn't under fucking FDR's platform in 32? Instead, we got a longer work week. We got the FSLA, the Fair Standards and Labor Act, rather than a 30-hour work week under the Black Connerly bill. That's the shit we should be talking about in terms of, and that's something that would be appealing to unions too, because unions are starting to think more about reducing hours of labor because they know it's a threat to these companies. These companies don't want to automate. Are you fucking insane? That'll put them right out of business. They need that living labor. They need a lot of it. So, anyways, I've kind of rambled on a little bit. I'm sorry, but I wanted to talk about it because I was really excited that he was talking about this because it's something that I also believe in, and it's also something that it shows, I think, a tremendous amount of self-reflection and insight on Haz's part to think about it as a possibility and to at least be quasi optimistic about it. I could see the self-doubt because he thinks it's going to weaken his efforts that he's put into building infrared so far as its own sort of self-sustaining project. But I think if he wants to really move into the real world, I mean, because he's always talking about having skin in the game, right? Like he talks about having skin in the game and like to me, not like the most interesting way possible, which is like, well, have skin in the game by debating your ideas. It's like, no, have skin in the game by going out in the real world, right? And seeing if people are actually amenable to what you are talking about. And I know he did that video and he's done video. He has another video coming out with MAGA people, but I'm talking about like actually going to union reps and being like, hey, let's sit down and talk about this. I'm a communist. You may not be a communist, but can we iron out something? Right? Can we sit down and get all the other unions to sit down and talk to one another? Right? Can we get these parties, these fucking institutional, liberal, leftist dog shit parties together and come together and say, can we fucking come together on this fucking topic about the government and the state and get your heads out of your asses and stop voting for Democrats, stop being up the asses of Democrats, stop being the tools and puppets of Democrats, right? And explain it to them. Actually explain it to them. Maybe, I don't know, come up with a fucking PowerPoint. There are people who are, libertarians who are another bunch of fucking losers. They're going into urban cities right now, and they're going there with PowerPoints and presentations, and they're teaching people who live in those cities about libertarianism. We're not doing that, and we're not explaining to them why the government is fucking us over and fucking them over. We're not doing that. We need to be more specific about that. And so like that's one idea that we could do. And I don't care about stealing from the Libertarian Party on that plan. Make a PowerPoint. I'll make one for fuck's sake. I'll make a PowerPoint. And make it for free, and it'll be about how to talk to the average working class about how they're getting fucked over by the New Deal. Feel free to use it. And then maybe that could at least be some sort of learning tool for us, for people who want to do outreach. But in terms of a grand coalition between parties, online influencers with these enormous fucking accounts, these people who are going to become politically homeless after this conflict, because this conflict is going to be going on for months, and then unions who make up a large swath of not only the economy, but like the functional economy, the actual thing, the part of the economy that makes it run. We could be formidable, and they all don't have to fly under the banner of a red flag. I know you want it to be as pure as that and as perfect as that, but maybe it doesn't have to be that way. Maybe it just has to be we have a common enemy, and that's it. And we want to put that common enemy out of its misery, and thus our suffering and immiseration out of its misery. So anyways, I've talked enough. I'm going to end the stream now. I don't know if anyone listened. I wasn't even paying attention, but I just wanted to make this because it was really enlightening for me to hear him talk this way, because it was very solemn of him to do it in the way he did it, which wasn't just like kiss my ring sort of thing. It was more like it was him. I thought in the most Haz way possible, being selfless as he can be, and saying this is what I care about communism, because that's what I believe in. And that made me, I felt connected at that moment, even though I don't like Haz, right? But I felt connected because that's what I want. I'm all about the communism. I'm all about how the fuck do we get there as fast as possible, and how do we do it in the most dangerous and deleterious way to the state, and how do we become dangerous to them, right? And how could we be the most strategic and tactical about it? And how do we use labor theory, and how do we use capital against itself? And if he wants to form a grand coalition, I am all for that. I think that is this was one of his better streams that I've seen thus far. And guess what? He didn't have to fucking do a debate, and he didn't have to talk about philosophy or anything like that. He just had to talk about coming together and unification. And then he didn't have to he didn't have to say, oh, these people are enemies and these people are blah blah blah. He just had to he didn't have to go after trans people or whatever. He just had to realize that we do have a common enemy. We must all have a common enemy. And so, because in the previous maybe 6 months ago, I'm here talking about like I'm going to make a list of like a Nixonian list of all the people who wronged me. And it's like, oh, that's nice. What about the communism shit? Right. And so like this is I'm glad for him, because he's sometimes I forget that he's 26, and I'm like really old. And like, cause like I said, I have nephews older than fucking Haz. And like, I just forget like I don't know what this generation is thinking sometimes. And so I don't, maybe I'm coming from a get off my lawn sort of thing, place, rather than trying to like really understand them. And so, I'm going to try to do, this stream inspired me. I'm going to try to do better and listen more. And I'm still not going to agree with leftists on anything, but, and I'm still going to be strident in my positions on, free time and going after deficit spending. But I think I'll be less hypercritical of the person rather than um, rather than strictly speaking just their ideas. And I think I've been pretty good with that anyways. But like, um, I have my own shortcomings, of course. So, and I'll try to be better about that. And but I'm glad that infrared is maybe being better about that, because I think um, I remember we've never said anything really super negative about Haz or Jackson. I think we've only tried to congratulate them as they've gone along, and we've tried to maybe push them towards the side of trying to understand the political economy of fascism, but that's neither here nor there. So good on him, and good luck with him maybe moving along with that idea as he gets his organization formed and as Jackson continues to grow on Twitter or X, I mean. And yeah, I don't know if I can edit this because this is really too long, much longer than I wanted it to be, because I only was it going on over an hour and a half, 2 hours or something. I only covered 30 minutes, but yeah, thanks for tuning in if you did, and if not, listen to it on your own time.